right. All right. Welcome back to the HEF podcast. That is the podcast of the Home Education Foundation. The Home Education Foundation is an organization started by the beloved Brenda Dickinson, a name that many across the state of Florida know, and some don't because we have so many people who are new to home education. Well, back in the 1980s, her and her husband, Craig Dickinson, got together and thought it was really important for parents to have the right to teach their own children spelled out in statute in a way that wasn't. And that it should be the right of parents to do that and not have to rely on abdicating their children over to a system. Imagine that. And she worked hard with Representative Daniel Webster at the time to get a bill introduced and passed to become law, which gave parents the right to educate their own children as they see fit, to set the standards, to pick the curriculum, to do all of the things, to recapture the years and memories lost to just waking up and handing your children off to others. Strangers, as my son would call them, certified strangers. Strangers with pieces of paper that let you know they are indeed okay strangers, if they are. But no, we have the right in Florida, the free state of Florida, to educate our own children the way that we see fit, to train them, to challenge them, to push them in ways that are unique to them, that we can sit with them and customize their education. We can give every single child an individual education plan, not just special students who can't be herded like cattle to the mainstream thing. But everyone can get that customization, and we're so thankful for Brenda, and we're also thankful for all of those pioneer moms, those moms who, like the founding fathers of our country, looked back and said, enough is enough. The rules are enough. We got it from here. Thank you. And as our founding fathers said, we have the do-it-yourself version of government ready. Self-governance is ready. Brenda and those founding mothers in Florida said, we have the do-it-yourself approach to education ready. Let's get started. So thank you to all of the parents in Florida, the free state of Florida, who take it upon yourselves to teach your own children. We're here, the voice in the Capitol, for you to speak with legislators, senators, representatives, organization leaders like the Department of Education, and to build coalitions all over the place to try to help keep that as free and open as possible. My name is Jason Crawford, and I am the new torchbearer to take over the Home Education Foundation and follow as diligently as I can in the footsteps of Brenda, though her shoes are so big for me to fill. I'll never fill those shoes, but I will definitely follow in her steps. And we're also thankful to all of our top sponsors. Thank you, Arete, FPEA, Fisher Precious Metals, and TBHC Group. There's a long history of groups in Florida. The most notable ones are the FPEA and the Home Education Foundation, HEF. We go way back, and we're so glad to have FPEA with us as a top sponsor monthly to show us the support and to keep things rolling. Good day, Brenda. How are you?
Good day. It is afternoon.
It is. I said day. I didn't say morning. Yay. I'm working on it. I'm doing good.
I would like to throw in great introduction as far as what the history was. And we always give Dan Webster the accolades, but there was also a senator that was very helpful. He did not home educate his children, neither did Daniel Webster, but Daniel wanted to, I should say, representative at that time, Representative Webster, wanted to home educate his children. But he got Senator Dick Langley to carry the bill in the Senate. And he was tremendous help because at some point, had he not been an attorney and know how to bluff things through, it would not have passed in the Senate.
We will add him to the list of names as we move forward.
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely. He's since passed away, but he was a
Yeah.
big help.
Well, I'm glad to have that name added to the roster. I'll start working it in as we move forward. So I appreciate that. Yeah.
Okay. We never mention him. We just give Representative um, Webster at that time all the credit, and he was the mover and shaker behind it. And Senator Langley was in his district, or he was in Senator Langley's district, because Senate districts are larger than House districts. And they were good friends, and Senator Langley was very conservative. So he was a great help in those days.
That's awesome. You know, that makes me think of one of the things I wanted to talk about today, which is looking out from where you are in your district, where you are in the state, and finding those leaders that are worthy of your support, and really get behind them and dig in. Really show them the kind of support that's needed. I know in our Discord, I often post helpful articles or things that are happening. There's a lot going on social media. I kind of take in and parse a lot of information and try to cherry pick the things that are most important to the home education crowd. Kind of pick those out and deliver them up to you. And as such, I follow people like James Uthmeyer, our Attorney General, and I'm going to butcher his name because I always call him Commissioner Stasi because he told me I could, but Anastasio Kamoutsas. He is great. The work that they're doing is phenomenal. And I know people have mixed opinions about our Governor DeSantis, so this isn't a political thing. This is just looking at leadership. And when something happens where someone's willing to draw a line and speak up and hold a line, especially one that's important to us in home education, they need our support. Don't ever think that just because they said something, it's done and over. Oftentimes, that's a response to something you can't see or a conversation that you weren't a part of. And so hearing what they post or seeing what they post on Twitter is oftentimes there is a back and forth happening that you can't see. And once it reaches a certain point where it becomes critical mass and it goes live online, that's midway through, and there is something there. So showing them the kind of support that they need and letting them know, letting them know when they do things we don't like, but also letting them know when they do things that are dead on, that have hit the target, circle, target centers are circles. When they hit something right in the middle, and they get it right. It's so important because it's easy to stay silent. It's easy for people to see something happening around them and to think, well, we'll just do this or we'll just do that. We don't want to ruffle feathers. We're really importantly working over there. There's a million things on our plate. And let some things slide. And these men right now are going to task securing rights for parents. I don't know if you've seen the trend over the last couple of months since the new commissioner has taken over, but there has been I don't think a week has gone, maybe 1 week has gone by where there's a lull and something didn't like come down as a hammer. But he has almost with a rhythm brought a hammer every week to bang on something. And the guiding force behind what they're doing is parents first. To chip back away at the bureaucracy, to try to dismantle, I don't know if dismantle is the right word, but to try to loosen the iron grip of the bureaucracy and to push back in a way that gives parents more driving force and driving power. One of my big concerns, however, is that that creates a vacuum. That creates a vacuum when you tell the bureaucracy its power limitations, when it took up a space and you push it back. Parents have abdicated. And I don't necessarily mean the home education parents, though we have some of that in the home education community as well. But across the board, there is this stepping back that parents have done through the years, where they have kind of abdicated the hiring choices of teachers to the principals and the superintendent and the school board and all of these policies and procedures and rules and people and parental involvement. There's the PTA, but parental involvement has waned a lot. And in areas in schools where you see high parental involvement, you tend to see better programs as a whole. You tend to see better outcomes, better results. I know that one of the recent accolades that's been being thrown around in the media, the different articles that have been written, points toward one of the cell phone bans for Florida schools as reading scores are going up. But there are so many factors, and I'm not saying that's not the case. It is, but there are so many factors that play into it, and parental involvement is a hard one to measure, but it's a really easy one to look back over 10 years and see how that escalates. And it's born out of a culture of parents being willing, parents who are willing to take the helm and go. Brenda, you want to chime in?
Well, I want to give some historical perspective to this, because up until 1985, when the home education law passed, parents had no rights. You either sent your child to a private school or a public school. Those were your choices. We began expanding that in 85, and believe me, the powers that be were not very happy about the expansion. Then moving forward, you had a few governors who were into expanding the options for parents, and that began really in about 1998, 99. Governor Jeb Bush was the governor at that time, and he really wanted parents to have the opportunity to send their child to a private school. About that time, Senator John McKay also had a passion, because he had a child with disabilities, wanted to create the McKay Scholarship. So the Department of Education is not an independent agency. They fall under some elected official. And back until 2000, around the turn of the 2000s, the election did away, a constitutional amendment did away with the elected position of Commissioner of Education. And then the legislature had to define how the governance of education was going to happen, because it completely changed all the laws at that time. So we did a whole school code rewrite in 2002, which I was involved in. But we shifted the power from the Commissioner of Education, who was independent, to do whatever he wanted to do. And at that time, the Department of Education followed the leadership of the department commissioner. It had always been the support of the public education system. They didn't have any control, no interaction with private schools, let alone individual parents. Over the last 20 to 25 years, it's been a long time coming, but the shift has been more toward parental involvement, as you were saying, but they didn't have the right prior to that to be involved. So the legislature has pushed the envelope over the years, and I would say really the last 15 years, they have defined parental rights in statutes, with the department being now, after the school code rewrite and the governance changed, under the direction of the governor. So it's an agency under the governor. So they're going to carry out the policies of the governor, which DeSantis for the last 6 years has been awesome in terms of giving parents more rights. over what's taught in the
Mm-hmm.
school. They have like committees that instead of the department defining what the curriculum is going to be, it has to be at the local level. Parents have a right, if they want to be involved in the selection of the textbooks, which they never did. So it's been a slow, steady walk to come to the point where we are today, where the rights of parents are defined in statute, and what Commissioner
Mm-hmm.
Stasi is doing. I'm not going to attempt his name.
Yeah.
But what he is doing is enforcing the policies that the legislature has passed, the laws, the policies of the governor, who is very parental rights oriented, and his own, because we know him, we've worked with him, and he has a real strong opinion that parents need to be involved in their child's education. So it's not just been something that parents could run down to the school back 25 years ago and have any involvement at all. It was all up to the schools to do everything.
Yeah. And that that kind of trend, or I would just say it's kind of the state of things for so long. As you peel that back, it leaves a vacancy, or it leaves a vacuum that needs to be filled. And historically, on a large scale, not talking about the home education community, but historically on a large scale, parents have been very apt to abdicate a lot of the responsibilities, the choices, the things that they could have decisions and weigh in on, or speak up and just be heard on and influence choices that have been made. A lot have just been like, we're busy. Thanks for taking our kids. And that's been kind of the trend. And now, since COVID and since a lot of the things that have popped up of, wait, what are they teaching in schools? There's a lot of people who are kind of waking up out of that lull of abdication, and they want to do something. But now the muscle memory is gone. Like, what do we do? How do I lift this weight? How does one even carry this amid how busy our lives are? We've got, it's funny because you can see, not just in education, you can kind of see this trend that plays out as we become more and more comfortable with the conveniences that we have. They become the new normal. They establish a new baseline of need, or what we think we need, in order to kind of get by. And so if my groceries aren't delivered to my doorstep, how in the world does anyone go shopping? Who has the time to go shopping anymore? If I can't browse for it online, I'm not buying it. I don't have time to go look in a store for something. I don't have time to go do this. And to a large degree, that's true. We're very overscheduled in our society. We're very work intense, and everybody's trying to make ends meet and get by and do. And I get that. That's not lost on me. But, and then this isn't a judgment as much as it's just an observation of many things happening all at once to come together to make up what is the reality of what's happening. Julie says, that is why your presence and continued fight are so critical as parents are waking up. Yes, I believe that's true. Thank you, Julie. And that is where we stand. That's the gap that we do as the Home Education Foundation stand in, is we want parents who are waking up to that to be able to hit the ground running and be reminded. If I were talking to someone who is starting to exercise again after a long time of not having exercised, they would need to ease into it. They might have forgotten some of the things about, ways to do this or work that or eat this or make sure you're doing this, and they might forget some of those things that they would otherwise know. And I think that that's where our society is as it starts to flex its muscles of independence once more. And we wake up and we lean into self-governance, that there are things that we have forgotten we can govern and have govern and forgotten how to govern in some ways, because there are needs that we have to, things that we have to pay attention to. Someone recently said in online, they were talking about how they're looking for people buying curriculum. I'm looking for somebody who's buying curriculum with the scholarship because I need help. I need guidance. And all I see are people buying these peripherals or tickets to that thing or, a field trip pass over here. And I'm trying to find curriculum. And someone in the comments, I think, had said, well, a lot of us traditional homeschoolers already have our curriculums. We are curriculums. We already have our curriculum picked out, or we already know what we're trying to teach. We're looking to spend the scholarship filling in the gaps of the other things. But this is a newcomer. This is a newcomer who doesn't have that. And so they're stepping in and they're going, well, I need that basic starting point. I need that. How does one even get started here? And so
Yeah, as part of that conversation, that particular one, there was also a lot of back and forth about, how do I know what I'm supposed to be teaching? Is there a pace I have to keep on? Like all of this is new to people that are just stepping into this. They're used to someone else making the plans and setting the pace of what's being taught and choosing what's being taught. All of it is brand new as a parent just stepping into that. And it can be really confusing and overwhelming.
And scary.
Yes. And I know we talked a lot about this last week. So if you missed that episode, that is episode 108. Please go back and listen to that when we talked about this topic at length for almost the entire one. So I don't want to go too deep into it today, but there is a very real need for the tried and true, those people who have been there for a while to come alongside the newcomers. Like the way that I would go to a gym and start working out and I'm looking for a personal trainer or I'm looking for somebody who in the gym seems like they know what they're doing. And I'm like, all right, I want to lift like you. I want to exercise like you, but I can't start where you're at. I have my own starting point because if I get under your weight, I haven't built up to that point yet. So helping them understand the steps, the little steps along the way. We started here and we took, I like to recommend for people to take their first year stepping back. And because we're so entrenched in all these systems and standards and programs, and we've got to, everybody's selling us their standard or their this or their accreditation or their all of that stuff. And take a step back for the first year and do as little as possible and realize that you didn't screw up your kids completely. After just 1 year, you could just take a semester if you just want to do a semester, but like take some time and truly completely let go of all of those standards and realize that you are the parent and you set the standard and look at your kid and figure out what makes them excited. Somebody I saw, Crystal, showed me a picture of a parent who had a question about math and my daughter she's not in love with math and this is really hard and it's just, and I looked at the worksheet. I was looking over her shoulder. We were at the pregnancy office and I looked at the math worksheet and it's just row after row after row after row after row after row after row all the way down of math problems. And I thought,
the tidal wave of advice she got from veteran homeschool parents was in line with what Jason is about to say, because they looked at it too and were like, ooh, no wonder she's struggling. One of them called it drill and kill. Like you completely kill the interest in the subject because it's
but
just
don't they
so
have to
monotonous.
get every line? Don't we have to do every problem? Don't we have to get through the book? Don't we have, if we're not teaching to the standards, we might as well just be going crazy and chaos, right? No.
This was a second grader, by the way. For
Oh my.
Yeah. So I was like, Crystal, just tell her to take some, action figures and like let them roll dice. Like take 4 6-sided dice and let her just roll the dice. And every time they roll the dice, they're trying to punch or fight or argue with each other and get a better argument or win or something. Or no, I think what it was because it was a girl. I was like, you remember the scene from Disney's Sleeping Beauty where the 2 fairies are fighting over the dress and like, I want to make it blue. I want to make it pink. I want to make it blue. I was like, well, every time they have to roll, let's see, 6-sided die. There's 4 dice. It's 24. So they have to roll at least a 14 or higher, right? In order to hit the dress. And so I want to cast the little spell and make the dress blue and let the girl color it blue if they hit it or if they don't hit it. And then she has to add up all the dice. And as she adds up all the dice, is it higher or is it lower? And then just come up with a game, but she's just coloring at that point. All she's doing is coloring. She does the math in her head with the dice, but then all she has to do is color. This stuff about these problems on the page going all the way down, drill and kill. Wow.
That's a very creative game. I'm very impressed. You just thought of that one right off the top of your head. But let me tell you, most homeschoolers aren't there.
Yeah.
So there are some standard games that you can purchase, like dominoes, doing the same thing, but just playing the game. And they move from concrete math with dots on those dominoes to adding them together. And that is mental math. And then you go to written math. So in school, we got it all reversed because teachers have to have something to grade. So they introduce problems like you're talking about before the child understands the concept. They'll never get to the point of liking math until they understand what the concepts are. So, you know, that there's lots of games. There are games with dominoes, dominoes.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you want to branch out beyond dominoes or your kid gets bored with dominoes, like there are just so many games now, like in today's marketplace, made for math, where the math is like the subtext of the game. So we had one someone gave us called Mathemagical something. And it was like a fantasy adventure board game where they go to like Unicorn Island and but all the spaces on the board require them to do math to advance. And there's card games, there's all kinds of fun games that I've come across. And if you can't afford to buy a bunch of games, Teachers Pay Teachers has you can print at home yourself very cheap and make that games that are similar to that. I had a whole bunch for Alistair because he's kindergarten. So when we were doing preschool, just basic addition and subtraction, I found this fun like meatball one. It was like, you know, spaghetti with meatballs that you put on it, and you could use it multiple different ways for counting, addition, subtraction, but it's all with taking meatballs on and off, and you just print it at home yourself and cut it out. You can laminate it if you want, or you don't have to. But it was hands-on for him, and it was fun to put the meatballs on and off, and it was such a simple thing, but it made it so much more fun than if I just plunked a worksheet down in front of him with a bunch of math problems.
Hi-Ho Cheerios is another early math game.
Aurora loved that one when she was little.
This is great. This is great. And Tracy's right. Let's take a moment and plug FPEA. They're one of our top sponsors. They do an amazing homeschool convention every year. She says it's a fantastic place to get ideas on styles of teaching and learning, curriculum choices, educational games, toys, etc. The ability and ability to look at them to see if it would be a good fit for their child and family. You get to try them on while you're there. You don't just have to read about the description online.
That's the great thing about FPEA, because there is such a there are just so many vendors there. So everybody can find something that is a good fit for, and you actually get to look and handle the product. And some of them will even have stuff set out that you can kind of test. And if not, there's people there that you can ask, like, you know, for handwriting and math, I've done that at FPEA. I've stopped at the vendors and said, here's what I'm struggling with my kid. Do you have something for this? You know? And so it is a lot for parents that feel overwhelmed just shopping online. It's a really good way to actually get your hands on something, flip through it, look at it, see if it's going to work for your child.
The kids can also get a chance to see it.
So back to that conversation of standards, and it's like skipping a rock on water. You throw it. We're going to hit standards, then we're going to go back to who sets the standards, and then we're going back to being thankful to our leadership for trying to put that back into the hands of parents. But those standards, you get to step away and back away from the bureaucracy. And they've come up with a lot of standards to make them, put feathers in their own caps and legitimize what you're spending your taxpayer dollars on. so that they can keep doing it. And there is a very real benefit to a public education option, but there's just a lot of ways in which it has gotten out of the hands of parents. It's for the parents to help educate their children, and yet it's become more about the perpetuation of the business model of education and all of these standards that are set. So I want to encourage, if you're not a homeschooler, if you're not a home education person, this podcast happens to find you. Dare to step in and take lead. Dare to step in and speak up about what you want to see in a classroom and what's important to you for your child. Flex your rights as a parent. It's your child. The child doesn't belong to anyone else but you. It doesn't belong to the state. It doesn't belong to the greater good of society. It doesn't. It's wonderful when they can participate in the greater good of society, but last I checked, the greater good of society doesn't come up to pay their bills if they're struggling or take them to soccer practice. It's you, the parent. They're your child. They're yours. You should have every right and authority to make the decisions over their education and their health, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Let me say, in terms of understanding standards, it's important that the state have some for public education, because if you don't, teachers, are going to be a little lost. But on the other hand, you have to understand the dilemma that teachers are in, because the standards are and curriculum are built for the middle person in that grade level. So what I found, I never could find a curriculum that fit our children, because we homeschool from their very beginning days of compulsory attendance. Is that the first part of the curriculum reviews what you did last year. In the middle of it, there's some new material. And then the last part of it reviews it so that you can pass a test at the end of the year. So I never could find a place that was worth $75 for a book to plug my children into. So
or just that middle part. Yeah, you're paying $75 just for the middle.
Exactly. So the thing I love now about home education is that home educators have developed a lot of curriculum, and it's not necessarily built like the public or private school curriculum. You can use that if you want to, but it's more of a pick this for math, that one for writing, and all that. So it really fits and is customized to your individual child. And that they cannot do in a public or private school, because there are too many kids in the classroom, and the really smart ones, if they don't give them extra work, they're going to be bored, and the low ones may not get it because the pace is too fast. So, or those, I don't mean lower, I just mean those that are behind. It's going to be hard for them to catch up. But in home education, if a child takes longer to grasp a concept, you don't have any timeline.
Let's expand on that.
There just isn't time in public school. There just isn't time for that. That's one of my favorite things about home education, actually, is that there is no, in Florida at least, there is no time frame where like you have to have covered this math by this date. So you really can adjust to each child. And I know we have one who was struggling with math, and this is just something I wanted to say really quick. Don't be afraid to experiment. Like if something's not working for your kid, you can switch midstream and try something different. You don't have to finish the curriculum out for the year. We finally found something that's working for her, but it took me several tries of lots of different approaches. I used one. It turns out she hates watching videos for her math. So any curriculum that included a video she had to watch, I just gave up on those because they frustrated her. She's a fast reader, so she would much rather read a lesson herself and then kind of do exercises to master it. But then finding something like that wasn't just straight worksheets that bored her to death, So I finally found something that's working for her, but it required some experimentation. So don't be afraid of that either, to, mix and match things and find something that's going to work for your kid.
Yeah.
Jason, you were
I
going
was
to
just
say
going to say that exploring the time part of it, because when it comes to setting standards or coming up with your rhythm, everything is just assumed that it has to go on this, fall, spring model and be 8 hours a day plus travel time, where you get anywhere from 6 to 10 hours of a student's day if they're in a public education option, or sometimes even a private school option. They're just gone. They're just gone. And we school every day. We don't take holidays. We don't take summers. We don't take winters. But when you do that, you spread out their learning over all of the time. The time per day goes way down. You realize that when they're drilling something, or they're learning something, not drilling, when they're practically learning something every day, it carries with them over time. And the need for like block down and memorize stuff for a test and then dump that and then move on and block, like you start to realize that it becomes a life of learning, not a season. And you can spread it out, and that's up to you too as the parent. You get to set that as well.
Yeah. One thing I found since we shifted to the year-round schedule, and I'm not saying everybody has to do a year-round schedule, but for a while we weren't. Like for years we weren't, because I was teaching at a home education instructional program, and so we just stuck with their schedule. We took summers off, we took winter break. Now that we're doing year-round, I find that because we're spending way less time per day, there's so many beautiful teaching moments that I didn't plan for that are happening in the rest of the day, because we have all this extra time to do other things that I may not have thought to teach them. Like my girls have taken up crocheting, and they're currently crocheting mittens for a pregnancy center. And they taught themselves that in their, spare time, and they love it. So there's just a lot of things that I wouldn't have intentionally taught them and one of our girls is really into softball. She practices pitching every single day. She took that upon herself. So they're learning all day long, but it doesn't all require my planning ahead of time. They're kind of filling their extra time with other things to learn, which is really cool.
And I think
And reading.
Yeah, my kids love to read. Yeah, they read a lot. Our kids love to read.
I want to clarify something that Jason has said in the past, and we talked about this last week. Is he keeps pushing video games to teach reading? So tell him what kind of video games you.
Fair enough. Yeah, because I have a long history with video games myself, so I have ample history from which to speak. Some of when I talk about video games, one of the things that we do with our family is I think we have a Switch that we got on Marketplace or something, and we subscribe to an annual subscription that gives us hundreds of old school games, hundreds of Nintendo, NES,
like
Sega,
from the 80s and 90s. Yeah.
Old
I mean, like any kid now playing Fortnite is gonna think we were back with horse and buggy. They're not gonna know the difference. We were in the horse and buggy playing Zelda. No, but the theory that I have that has worked is that the older games, a lot of them made overseas, had dialogue for running the story because they were encapsulated games with a challenge that you would seek to beat, and it would take you X number of months or however long to beat it. And so and then they would make a new cartridge, another game, and sell you another game. And the model today is different. So the old school games, there were no voice acting or voice lines. In fact, that's some humorous memes float around the internet because of how bad the language is. And like, all your base are belong to us, and they'll try to like attack you. But what happens is, because they're short and bite-sized, early readers, especially like boys, can get some of those games and earn time on them, but they're learning to read while they're playing those games because you can't actually beat those games without reading what's on the screen. Once you hit around 2000 to 2005, there was a real big upswing in cinematics and cinematic quality. Video games that emerged from that time had a lot of video cutscenes and stuff like that that would be embedded into them with voice acting, and so a lot of the reading and dialogue went off. And then as you get even further, the emergence of mobile phones and mobile devices from 2007 to like 2011, you end up getting a lot of games that are, that market was, the market for cell phones emerged at that time, and people liked a couple of the Tetris-y type games or some of the old school games they could play on their phone now. But then as that goes further into like 2013, 14, 15, 17, you start to get games that can be played on a computer, on a mobile device, on a console. And so it opens up, and the model shifted away from let me sell you my game into the game is free. And let me keep you dopamine locked into the game. And oh, by the way, as it gets hard, don't worry about it. You can buy this new set of armor, or you can buy this new piece, or that's really challenging, isn't it? You feel that? Yeah. Well, you can make that go away. Just pay $5. It's not a lot. It's just $5. It's $5 and you'll be powerful too. And so the whole model in the gaming industry shifted. And that's why I don't ascribe to games like Fortnite. I'm not a big fan at all. There are the lather, rinse, repeat. You play the game, you play it poorly, you die, you start right back over. It's just constant dopamine drip, and what you learn is very different. So, and when you're using some of those older games, I mean, I have fond memories of Oregon Trail back in kindergarten, dying of syphilis and not being able to kill the deer and dying of hunger and starving.
It was dysentery for me.
I mean, it probably was
So
dysentery.
they're teaching
Yeah,
history,
it did.
right?
It did. But you had to read constantly and engage and problem solve and do things, and there were challenges, and there's great value in the older games, but kids these days are gonna go, oh, they're boring. Oh, that doesn't have cool graphics. You know, their favorite streamer is not in there, and so I get it. It's a bit frustrating, but I do think that there's a great value to video game learning. And I've used it with our kids, and board game learning, and I've used it with our kids. And our 5-year-old is reading Magic Treehouse books. He's like reading full chapter books and stuff. And I used video games to teach him that.
Yeah, and at first, 3 of our 4 kids were very resistant to reading at first. Our younger daughter, for whatever reason, was not, but our older daughter and our 2 boys were all reading resistant at first. And video games is how Jason unlocked that for them. And then once that was unlocked to where they kind of got over the hump of the mechanics of reading, all of them loved reading. So they just dove straight in. And yes, it's true. Our 5-year-old is reading the Magic Treehouse chapter books now on his own. And
what grade level would you say those are?
Those are first to third grade. And our 10-year-old is reading like Harry Potter books, so the thick middle grade books. And our girls, who are 12 and 14, are flying through every novel I throw at them. So, and these are all kids that at first really didn't want to read and showed no interest. So it is a useful tool. And also, just as a side note, the old school video games, they teach some character too.
Yeah, they do.
Because I don't know, for any of you who played like original Nintendo growing up, I did. Those games don't have a save. You can't save your progress. So they teach resilience and determination and commitment, because you mess up enough times and you have to start all the way over.
It's funny, we've actually had days where I'll catch them. It has spawned new rules in our house, because I'll catch them bouncing from game to game going, oh, that one's boring. Oh, that one's boring. And I'm like, let me watch you play it. And then they'll play it, and I'm like, well, the game hasn't changed. The character does the same thing. you've changed. You started out thinking it was interesting, and now it's boring because it got challenging. And I'm like, no, you finish that game. You finish what you started. And they're like, no, I want to quit. I'm like, no, you play that game till you beat it. And they're like, no, Dad. I'm like, yes. That's right. You don't walk away until you beat it. That's right. And then,
yeah, we also have a rule about hopping
so
between games. Like they're limited. We don't let them play video games every single day. And when they do, they have time frames, but they have to choose 3 games for the day. Those are their 3 games. So if they play one and they decide, I don't really feel like playing this game today, they can only change games twice.
Well,
because again, that's a dopamine hit. Like in today's world, bouncing from thing to thing because it just lost interest. We didn't want to reinforce those dopamine patterns in their brain. So they pick 3 games. Those are their 3 games. And if they get tired of those 3 games, they can stop playing. Or they can keep playing one of those 3 games. And they have to decide together.
From.
Yeah.
So they get to go, well, do I want to play a game I know I like? Or do I want to, and they're starting to like problem solve and make choices. Or do I want to try new games? But maybe they aren't fun. Maybe I like this one better. So watching them make the decisions that they make is great.
Even just on a very basic level, it's a good conversation starter.
Yeah. Because
we've talked so much about brain chemistry and brain science just from our implementation of video games with our kids, and like awareness of what your brain is actually doing and why people get stuck scrolling their phones and why people want to bounce from game to game. It's a very educational topic if you approach it from that angle, actually.
Everything can be used as an educational topic outside of written curriculum. And when you approach it and you're teaching them brain science with video games,
they get it.
I don't think that any curriculum is going to match that in terms of learning. So the neat part about home education is all of the kids learn at their own pace. And even the little younger ones are going to pick up a lot of information as you're teaching to the older kids. So it's a unit study. It's for all ages. They may revisit some of that later and get more in depth. But I think it's really one of the benefits of home education. Everything is a learning topic.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be video games for your family. It could be board games, card games, cooking, whatever hobby you find yourself engaged in. There's so much to learn from so many things. If you delve, like we have right now, we have a whiteboard in our dining room with the daily recommended amounts of protein and carbohydrates for different age groups. And then if you're sedentary versus active, or if you're pregnant like me or diabetic, because we have my mom in the house. And so the kids now I told them, I'm not expecting them to track everything meticulously. I just want an awareness. So they're checking all the labels. How many carbs are in this? How much protein is in this? And that's just part of our life. Like we're just for a week or two, just practicing this as part of like, as we're making our meals, let's look and see what's actually in it. Are we getting the right balance? So it's not difficult to provide learning experiences for them just even by going around through your daily life. If you don't want a package curriculum or you don't want to use a video game, there's so many different ways.
Since we brought up video games, I do want to add some clarity on one thing. Because people ask me this sometimes. So,
because video games to me are very negative. So when you say those things, I'm thinking, why are you promoting video games? And then we got a chance to talk about it in depth, and I go, oh, I didn't know.
So there
about
are some guidelines that I've come up with for our family, and I'll share them with you because they may help. And if you don't know them, the rest of it might not make sense. So the number one thing that we even wrote it on the mirror for a while when the kids would go into their bathroom, it was there. The first rule is get your work done, then have your fun. And so it creates this routine of putting work before pleasure, putting responsibility before leisure, and really getting them to focus on, hey, look, when you are done with your work, the reward is the fun that you get to have. And it gives them a not until. So rather than putting together a strict thing where they earn so much time or do this or do that, it's simply just get your work done and then have your fun. And rule number 2 is no games in isolation. We do not allow games in our house at all to be played in isolation. No one sits by themselves to play video games. This is because, one, I have fond memories of childhood where we would take turns beating each other or seeing who could get further in a game, or we would each have a controller in our hand and we're fighting against each other. And just a lot of opportunity for socializing and building bonds with the family and things like that are key. And anything that pulls us away and isolates us, I think even reading in our home for too long a period of time in isolation is something that will take the kids and be like, hey, get up and go play or go do something together. Because we don't approve of isolation in our home. So no gaming in isolation. And then the third rule is no gaming when life outside is so great. Gaming is kind of a last resort. So if you look outside and the weather is great and it's not so hot out there you're going to die, or so wet out there you're going to drown, then go ahead and go outside and go on a real adventure. Video games are great because you can give the facsimile of an adventure. You feel like you went on one. You feel like you participated in something. Really, you were just sitting down staring at a wall, but you feel like you did something. Real life is there to be lived, so go have a real adventure and challenge the boys and the girls to do that. So that's rule number 3. And then rule number 4 for us is no game hopping. A lot of the times they'll start to trigger the dopamine release and they're having fun, and then it's now it's hard. Now it's hard, so I say it's boring. And then I convince myself and I use language improperly to negotiate with myself of what's really happening. And so we just come up with a rule, no game hopping. You pick 3 games at the beginning of every day that you could play at some point when you are playing games. And then when the time comes that you play from one of the 3 that you picked. And you can hop around between those because that will eventually get boring too. But outside of that, no game hopping. So we let them kind of do. But we also avoid games that are hyper repetitive.
Yeah, I was just going to say there's kind of one additional rule that is more on us as the parents for curating games and also shows and movies. But the kids know the rule because we talk about it often, and it's no mindless games. Nothing that is just repetitive, luck-based. You just push a button over and over.
Button mashing.
We want games that are requiring logic or some sort of engaged brain activity. Yeah, problem-solving challenges.
The harder, the better.
As you were telling, make them go outside, my brain is going, well, you could get a chart of all of the birds that you saw out there and the different categories of birds and insects. And everything can be a learning experience.
Yes, and I love doing that as well. I am like, it is a habit of mine to hand them something. Like we went to the beach and they collected a bucket of shells. We got home. I'm like, great. Here is a catalog of all the shells in Florida. See if you can identify them. I do that kind of thing to them all the time. Here's a bird watching book. Go see what you can find. Yeah. But those are great ways to fit in little learning moments into what they're already doing. Yeah. So.
Well, I didn't think you were going to get me monologuing about video games.
I hope this has been helpful for parents that are coming out of a system and give them the freedom to know that education is everywhere. It isn't in a desk at a school or between certain hours. And the beauty of the home education law in Florida is parents have all the freedom they want in educating their children. You can't teach them all the facts. You can teach them. You can teach them math and how to learn the various progression of math. You can teach them to read, and that gives them an unlimited opportunity for learning.
You're right. That's true.
Yeah. And Google and YouTube, I know there are parents that are wary of those, but they've become a huge friend to us and our family. With supervision, we don't just hand them to our kids, but I can't even count the number of times my kids come to me and say, can we Google? And it's some kind of just thing they're interested in or curious about or whatever. So we do. I always try to stop when they ask that and say yes, because those are moments that you're capitalizing on what they're already
Yeah, I want to be
interested
clear
in.
about that too.
So,
Our children do not have unsupervised access to the internet, period, ever. All of our computers and devices are always in an open common area in the home. And you know, we know when they're on them. They check with us. These are important things. I think we were on our way to the pregnancy doctor again, and we were riding up the elevator, and this mom handed her daughter, like knee high, a cell phone, and the daughter's just walking around with her cell phone like this as the mom leads her around. And I just thought, oh, it's so sad. It's so sad. There's a while we do use YouTube and we use a lot of resources that are free, I encourage parents to take that time with your kids, unplug them from all the
yeah.
systems, and spend your time with them. Like be present, look each other in the eyes, have conversations.
I just wanted to throw that out there because parents that are feeling overwhelmed and you don't know anything about this topic, you don't have to feel intimidated by that. You can sit down with your kids and go, great, let's look it up, because the internet is great for that. And
Agreed.
it's free.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up. I wasn't trying to counter that point. It's just one of those things that.
Yeah, but there are some safety measures. Like he said, we don't hand the devices to our kids.
I didn't want anyone to think we just put Oculus goggles on our kids and turn them, just like come back in 8 hours and tell me you're educated.
Now with our older kids, like we are also teaching independent, safe ways to use Google, like with supervision. But you know, we're starting to edge our teenagers toward independence with, you know, they love to cook, so they will ask if they can look up baking recipes, and I say yes and let them do it on their own, because they know how to safely do that without stumbling into other things. But there's a balance to be found. But I just wanted to put it out there that if you're just starting out and you're overwhelmed, you don't even have to go buy a curriculum. Like Jason said, you can just take a step back, live life, Google the questions that your kid throws at you. You know, and you can really just kind of breathe, take some breaths.
And games, you know, every single game is built to be challenging. That's what makes them fun. So they're going to learn every time they're challenged. They're going to learn some new way through the challenge. Just keep throwing that at them, and then revisit what standards you do want, what curriculum you do want to use, you know, as you step back into it. But you are the parent. You are the parent, and we're so thankful for the leaders that we have right now in the Department of Education and in the Capitol, who are, in fact, squarely pointed at parents first, and restoring the rights of parents over their children above the bureaucracy, and we need to cheer them on. I had planned to pull up Commissioner Stassi's Twitter, or I guess it's called X now, and show you everything from the top down here. This gentleman is just rocking and rolling. One of his pinned or top posts is about the speech and debate, the Florida Civics and Debate Initiative that's there, which is absolutely fantastic. You scroll down even further, they're celebrating employees, the early identification and targeted interventions to change lives in Florida for dyslexia awareness. Then there's not 2 or 3 down, you've got another parents' rights issue right here with a letter from Attorney General James Uthmeyer, and it just constantly, like, post after post after post with letters and things that where they are actively pushing for parents to be able to be more involved. And as they chip back at that vacuous power, that struggle, it is important that parents step back into the role. Because if we're so far abdicated out that they carve an opening for parental rights and we don't see the opening and take it, that it gets closed by, that vacuum will get closed back by the bureaucracy. So step up and step in. They're your children. You lead, you take the helm, you teach them what you want to know, and we'll fight for your rights to be able to do that. And we're thankful for the leaders that we have great relationships with right now that are doing that as well. So hats off to all of them. Brenda, we are at our time for the day. What would you like to wrap us up with? Yes, ma'am.
Well, 2 points. One is the home education law is a means for meeting compulsory attendance, not education.
Correct.
Because the public schools are required to provide a free, appropriate public education system. So they provide the system, and home educators get to provide their own system, whatever that is. You just have to have your children in one of those areas, public, private, home education, PEP, private tutor, between the ages of 6 and 16. So the state does not require or prescribe a curriculum or standards for home education because we're an attendance state.
Yes, I love that. I think that's a great thing to point out and end on because it's quintessential, and I think it's something that I think has been misunderstood in some of the conversations I've had with parents and or vendors recently. And so that is a very, very valid thing to mark. And I'm glad that you brought it up. All right, well, let's go back and say thank you once more to our parents for the free state of Florida. We thank you for your support. We thank you for the intent, living an intentional life, educating with intent your own children. We appreciate that for you. We're alongside you doing that. And thank you to our top sponsors, Arete, FPEA, and Fisher Precious Metals. And special thanks to one of our homeschool dads locally here to us in Tallahassee. Thank you for the music, our intro and our outro, custom made for us. You are a brilliant man and very, very skilled. Thank you so much for donating that to us.